Dublin City Council is one of 32 local authorities in Ireland. A Smart Dublin initiative was launched in March 2015, and its aim was to try and promote innovation and provide better services for the City of Dublin. As a local authority, we generate huge amounts of data every day. We have a lot of legacy systems because we're quite a established organisation. So it means that data isn't always connected. It's not always available in similar formats. It's not integratable. And there's a bit of work required, I suppose, from departments to try and get it up to that level so that it can be used in an effective way. One of the talks that I was at was with Capventis, highlighting how they changed and reformed a police department using Qlik. And I thought it was really, really interesting. I thought the application behind it was quite user-friendly. And there'd been a lot of conversations happening within the organisation about dashboards and, an easier way to explain data to senior management teams and things like that. So when I met Paul, we were having a conversation about open data and was there data belonging to the libraries that we could publish and make available on the open data platform. So as that conversation went on, and after having the conversation with Capventis, it seemed like they were a very good fit. By exploring the library data using the platform, I felt that, we'd have some excellent results.
The library management system, it's a large network of 30 different library authorities, and effectively we've got a national library catalogue. So as you can imagine, we've got a lot of data. And as the consortia have developed, we've increased the number of integrated systems with that central catalogue. So we have, for instance, kiosks, open library systems, managed Wi-Fi. So each are producing data. So, and because we're reporting to the other local authorities, the local government management agency, we have to provide stats over the quarterly or annual or monthly basis. So we had a number of different interfaces. So the advantage of looking at these kind of data analysis interfaces was it was worthwhile for us because we wanted to see all the data in one place and automate it as much as we can up to the minute. The main conversation that we started up was about the movement of books. So obviously, because we have an integrated system, we also have an integrated reserve system so that when members of the public, look for a book, that book could potentially come from anywhere in the country. So because of that situation, we had to look at a way that we could visualize the movement of the books in order to, think about things about resourcing or the carbon footprint or getting value for money out of our budgets. We're using a library management system called Sierra, connected to Qlik. If you have a product that helps you singularly connect all the different items and gives you an overview, a pilot overview or a panoptic eye over the different volumes, levels of data, and also the different systems that are all connected, you're able to respond to questions and decisions more rapidly than you would otherwise.
From a public perspective, they know in advance how long it's going to take. They don't have to wait as long for it. I think that's one advantage for the public. I think another one, when we talked about the movement of books around the city and our carbon footprint, if we could measure that in terms of mileage and costs, we'd have a better perspective on what kind of carbon footprint we're creating, but then also how can we address that. And I think climate change is quite topical at the moment. It's on every local authority has a climate action plan, and if you can build a baseline, as I said previously, I suppose that really helps to make better decisions about how we go forward in the future. In terms of other departments, the fact that the dashboard is so flexible, it allows you to present data to your senior management team in an easy and digestible way, even if you wanted to go and publish some of the data and the dashboards and make them available openly for the public to see. Again, it's another way it makes the data more accessible. Working with raw data, not everybody understands how to do that, or the tools that you need to be able to create visualizations. So if you can give an overview in an easy to read format, I think it helps people to understand what's happening within local authorities. And I think it helps build trust as well. The more data that you can publish, the more things that you can make open and available. People begin to rely on that information and feel like that they can trust that the information that they're getting is true information. The dashboard allows you to ask different questions that you might not have thought of asking beforehand. So if you see a trend happening in a particular area, then you can ask questions as to why that trend's happening. And then based on the information, go out to the public, ask them, their opinion and get feedback. Because I think although we're seeing a lot of change in terms of data and, how valuable data is, we're also seeing that, how it influences the public and what services we provide is also really important. And getting public opinion when you're, bringing in maybe a service design approach. So you're trying to shift away from tech for tech's sake and move to more tech for, to enable better services. COVID has really accelerated the pace at which local government has had to adapt and become more digital. And I think it's quite encouraging that while there's momentum there, that we continue to try and drive it further into the organisation.
A certain amount of cultural change would be driven by, in terms of the libraries, would be driven by the movement from traditional library services into online and digital library services, which creates a whole new environment. That in itself, which people were naturally had an inclination to be able to track because they were kind of trained librarians. I think the culture and the whole way of doing business has changed, and we've had to adapt accordingly. But it hasn't changed in a strategic way. It's almost, oddly enough, the digital landscape has formed organically. So now we're in a position where we have to catch up with that and put our stamp on it in a way that we understand it, and we can at every point look at the data and have conversations about that data. Particularly the interesting thing, I think, is that while we're using all these new systems, it's not necessarily the systems themselves are the be-all and end-all. They're not the things that are going to solve all our problems. What they're doing is presenting us with the information and allowing us to have an informed conversation. So my experience particularly in library management systems, again, is it's not the library management system to solve all problems. It's there to help us as a tool, and it's only actually the actual communication that's going to improve any given organization.
when you can turn around a pilot like this in 6 months, it's a really positive sign. I mean, part of the Smart Cities program is to try and encourage other departments to be innovative and to think about doing different things, not just with data, but with the solutions that they provide and how they provide their services. So if you can find a really good story to tell, and you can find a department that can support, that can stand behind, I suppose, a pilot like this and say, this really improved our service or helped to improve the way we do things. That gives you, I suppose, it's encouraging for other departments then to try new things as well.
Our experience with Capventis has been very good. We had a very clear set of goals from the outset. We worked very collaboratively in the sense that we had all the partners in one place, or at least a Teams call, or a number of Teams calls. We had people from Smart Dublin. We had a number of library staff who were all involved in stats collection, together with Capventis, and we thrashed through what we were trying to do. So we worked out a schedule of work. The schedule of work was clear. We had weekly updates on the status. When we ran through a number of integration issues. We persisted collectively, and we got those done. So we met all our challenges, and we brought our pilot project to a significant place, which doesn't cover everything, but I would say it's strong basis and a firm footing for any future development that we may endeavour with. Capventis did a number of training sessions with the library staff and Smart Dublin staff. So we worked through the interfaces and how we create graphs. We also worked through the back end in terms of the architecture and how we can turn the data into information that was readily available to Qlik and can be manipulated in Qlik. So we've learned a lot. Some of it has been overwhelming. We could potentially be doing more with it. Certainly, long term, I would ideally like to see, if we were to develop this project, having workshops with our own teams so that we could regularly kind of keep the interface evolving.
The process was really smooth. Capventis did an initial workshop. From that, then they developed a scope of work, and we were able to decide based on the budget that we had what elements were the most important to focus on first. And then the rollout, I think, was all in all probably about 6 months in duration. So it was really fast to deploy. And during that time, the libraries team, as well as the Smart City team, availed of training to be able to use the platform and to then try and upskill ourselves so that we could use the platform in a different way. So I suppose Paul had a very targeted idea when it came to the pilot, where from my point of view, I thought that there was a number of other services across the local authorities that would be able to use a dashboard like this and gain real insight from the information. It's really important for any company that decides to engage with a local authority to understand that the pace isn't always as fast as it is in private industry. Capventis, they knew that coming into the project. They'd experienced it before. They'd worked with other public sector organisations. And I think that it really does stand because even that knowledge if you don't have that, it can be a barrier to projects, and it can cause frustration for the stakeholders involved, and when things don't move maybe as quickly as you'd like them to. So I think, yeah, it was definitely a real benefit. And as Paul said about the training, I think, Capventis were used to doing in-person training. So we have to remember that, like, our training sessions happened literally at the start of COVID. So they had to pivot quite quickly and, put all the training and make it available online. And even though it was, their first time to do it online, it was really good. It didn't prevent us from, I think, learning what we were supposed to learn either.
It should, I suppose, Nicola, it should be pointed out that the staff that we dealt with were very patient, friendly, clear, articulate, and the materials that we got were clear. We worked through them. So, this was all very new for us in a lot of ways, and a lot of us had some SQL knowledge, not extensive, but we were learning. Although we're used to, when we're working with IT, we're used to learning on the back foot. But it was an enjoyable experience. It gave us a good flavour of what's possible.
Yeah, and I think the real world examples are really useful, because for me anyway, I like to be able to apply what I learn. So when you have real world examples to use as part of the training, I think that really helps, where you can apply it then to your own organisation afterwards.
Ultimately, the potential is endless. Things like stock placement, resource selection, staff resourcing help us to ensure equality and equity of service for our communities, and allows us to specifically target help for communities that need it. And that is speaking as a librarian with an idealistic outlook.
We'd had such a good experience with the Qlik Sense product that when I saw it being used by another city, I was like, I know what that product is, because the dashboard's so clear and so clean, and just so easy to understand. I think for me, that's what it's about, bringing all the different data sources together and then being able to have one view. And the fact that it's interactive as well, I think really helps if you're trying to show other people some of the stats that are available on the dashboard.
A library is ultimately about sharing, and it's about managing that model of sharing. So having all the data sets integrated in one place, which we're not quite there yet, but it would be ideally where we'd like to go, allows us to build from the ground up a data source specific to us, and to allow us to mold that as time goes on, as we understand our service and how our service is changing over time. It's a work in progress. It certainly focused the mind towards where we need to be going. There's been a joy in the simple making a connection between two systems.
And the joy between the departments. Because a lot of the time we don't work together. So, as a large organisation, I think we have 520 services, 5,000 members of staff. We don't always get the chance to see what other departments are doing. So I think even being able to collaborate with the library section has been, a real benefit to us in Smart Cities.
Well, as I said earlier about the importance of communication around systems. So having that collaborative approach and working with Nicola and her team, having the library staff involved there, not just my particular department, and working with Capventis, allowed us to share knowledge and rethink how we do our business, and gave us possibilities.
You can actually show that it can make an impact or make a difference to either the staff that are working in an organization, where you can, or to the public. I think that's where, it really inspires me to do more and to try and keep pushing, I suppose, innovation and encouraging other departments to take it up.
The joy in it for me, again, is making the connections between systems and making the connection between people, and having those conversations and being able to be part of a movement that is ultimately, I would expect, help us do our business. So as it stands, I mean, the library service is a very large patchwork of systems and people, and including the public. And it's gathering all those disparate elements up and being able to communicate between all those various different stakeholders in order to provide a service that the public, our public and the communities are proud of. And that's ultimately the joy in what we do.